So on January 16th, we got the story of the death of Eugene Cernan. And he is an astronaut, supposedly the last astronaut to walk on the moon. Neil Armstrong was the first. He was the last. And the funny thing is that back in November, I even mentioned this guy because there's been a huge moon theme, you know. I talked about ever since the death of Prince. Prince died on the night of a full moon, and there was all the blood moon symbolism, lots of moon stuff. I talked about Lupercalia a whole lot, and Lupercalia is the celebration and sacrifice of the wolf, and think about the wolves and werewolves and howling at the moon, the royal family theme. This year on Prince Charles's birthday, 68th birthday, we got the closest supermoon since the year 1948, which was also the year that he was born. He was married to Princess Diana. Diana is the goddess of the moon. Lots of moon symbolism, and that's why I even looked this guy up. I was watching the Purdue-Wisconsin game, and one of the big deals was that Eugene Cernan and Neil Armstrong both attended Purdue, and they had talked about that during the game. So I looked this guy up because there was a big moon theme. Anyway, his name in Gematria, Eugene Cernan, equals 112. And if you don't know what Gematria is, I'll leave a link in the description called How to Gematria. I'll leave a bunch of other links. I'll leave a link to this blog. I've just been covering the same stuff over and over for the last couple years. It's hard to go back and re-explain what I'm talking about. But if you have been following what I'm saying, you'll understand this more. You just have to watch this 15-minute video. And if you want to understand more of the storyline, you need to watch some of my other videos. But basically, Gematria is the practice of coding numbers into words and letters and whatnot. So, for example, A is the first letter. A equals 1, B equals 2, C equals 3. And you take a name, so E is 5, U is 21, G is 7, you add all that up, it equals 112. And it is something that is used by the Freemasons, the Zionists, the royal family, the people alike, the elitists in this world. They know about this system of numbers and they use it, and it syncs up to the calendar. So, just pointing that out, this guy's name in Gematria equals 112. It said that he is one of 12 people to walk on the moon. Fidel Castro had just died when I made this post, and Fidel Castro equals 112. Think about him in regards to all the Miami stuff that I've mentioned as well. But Fidel Castro also makes you think of the Cold War and the space race and a bunch of other things. Florida in general is very particular in regards to all the space stuff. That's where a lot of the rockets were launched and whatnot. So who knows? I even wrote in here Ohio State equals 112. And it was just after there was the Ohio State shooting or something, and then Ohio State had just beat Michigan and whatnot. University of Michigan equals 112. It was the 112th time they played each other. The Super Bowl this year is going to be played in Houston, but just in general, think about Houston in regards to the Space Center and whatnot. Houston, we have a problem. Houston in Gematria equals 112. Prince, the singer, died on the 112th day of the year. The Simpsons, on an episode of The Simpsons that came out on November 2nd, 11/2, The Simpsons murdered Prince along with Neil Armstrong, the first guy to walk on the moon. So just something to think about. And that's the reason that I've been following a lot of this, is because of the death of Prince. And a whole lot more with Prince, but he even died on Queen Elizabeth's 90th birthday and whatnot on the 112th day of the year. Anyway, when you look up Eugene Cernan, you find out when he was in the Navy, he was in attack squadrons 126 and, of course, 112. Keep in mind 126. I'll bring that up again in a second. It also says that he piloted the rover on its final whatever, recording a maximum speed of 11.2 miles per hour, giving him the unofficial lunar land speed record. So he has a lunar land speed record for a rover of 11.2 miles per hour. A lot like 112. He was in Squadron 112 in the Navy. His name equals 112. Oh, the odds. Talked a lot about this Native American theme that went along with the moon theme. Like the Cleveland Indians hadn't won since the year 48. The last big supermoon was in the year 48. Same year that the biggest election upset was ever in American history, when Harry S. Truman defeated Thomas E. Dewey in 1948. Donald Trump in Gematria equals 48. So there was lots of Native American stuff that I followed, and that's how I was pretty sure the Indians were going to play the Cubs in the World Series. Even had the death of W.P. Kinsella. Whole bunch of other stuff that connected to Kevin Costner and Dances with Wolves, and the guy in that movie even died this summer. So anyway, the reason I mention that is Purdue is in Indiana. Indiana is the land of the Indians. That's also where Mike Pence is from, right? Donald Trump's vice president, Mike Pence, Indiana. So Neil Armstrong died at age 82, and I wrote Gene Cernan is 82 years old right now, and his birthday is Pi Day. Well, let's look at Neil Armstrong really quick, and I'll come back to some of this. So Neil Armstrong, he was born on 8/5. His name, he went to Purdue. Purdue equals 85 in Gematria. If you write out Purdue University the small way, it equals 85. Neil Armstrong, in regards to Prince Charles, Neil Armstrong died 82 days before Prince Charles's birthday. And so, I mean, literally, Neil Armstrong's death day was 82 days before the supermoon that we got this year, you know, whatever it was. The 4th anniversary of his death was 82 days before this extra supermoon. There was also another supermoon in December, on December 14th, and Neil Armstrong's death day to that day, 112 days. I know he died in 2012, but still interesting how it fits, fits the narrative. I've seen this all the time, actually. And then Cernan, a lot of people on YouTube talk about CERN and manipulating the universe and time travel and whatnot. And literally, this guy's name is Eugene Cernan. Just kind of interesting. Made me wonder. So anyway, look at this. So Eugene Cernan, the small way in Gematria equals 58, the big way 112. Talked about Houston equals 112. He was born in the year 34, 1934 on Pi Day. The date numerology, 3 plus 14 plus 34 equals 51. We're going into Super Bowl 51 that's played in Houston. He died on a date numerology of 34. 1 plus 16 plus 17 equals 34. Him and Neil Armstrong both died at the age of 82. 82 in Gematria equals 51. It also equals 132 in Gematria. NASA and Jewish Gematria equals 132. The 82nd prime number, also 421, reminding us of the death of Prince on 4/21, the 112th day of the year. The Simpsons killed off him and Neil Armstrong on 11/2. I even went as far as talk about LeBron James last year in 2015. Before they won the NBA Finals, on Halloween he dressed up as Prince, and Kevin Love dressed up as Jackie Moon from the movie Semi-Pro with Will Ferrell and whatnot. Anyway, so Eugene Cernan born on Pi Day, March 14th, and in this article they talked about how he was the last man to walk on the moon. If you write that out in Gematria, the last man to walk on the moon, 314. A lot like Pi, 0.314. A lot like his birthday, 314. I wonder if it's connected to the Kansas train wreck that happened on March 14th last year, 2016. That's also Steph Curry's birthday. And there was 131 passengers. Super Bowl equals 131. Championship equals 131. I wonder if that's somehow connected. I just didn't look enough into it and piece it all together. But a lot of the train wreck stories that we've got in the media and whatnot, they all seem to be synced up to sports championships and whatnot. And this one happened on his 82nd birthday. Makes me wonder. Eugene Cernan also died 57 days before his birthday, or a span of 1 month, 26 days. Remember, he was in Squadron 126 in the Navy, also 112. How interesting, he dies 1 month, 26 days before his birthday, which is also 57 days. The word moon in Gematria just so happens to equal 57. How fitting, he was the last guy to walk on the moon. If you use the end date, the total span of days, it's 58 days. Eugene Cernan equals 58. Freemasonry equals 58. Pretty much every astronaut is a Freemason. Another big thing they talk about on his Wikipedia page and whatnot is that he was at the Comedy Central roast of this guy and roasted this guy, Don Rickles, who was born on 5/8, a lot like 58. I know I talked about this guy before as well, too. I just wanted to mention that because there's something to do with them Comedy Central roast. I talked about the Donald Trump one, where they had the Grover Cleveland money on the background, whatever, $1,000 bill or whatever it is. And they even showed the 88 and Trump in Gematria equals 88. There's a whole lot more to that as well. Even the roast of Rob Lowe was super synced up to the World Series this year. I'll leave a link to that video. I don't know if I made one on a video about the Donald Trump roast. I did make a blog post about it, but you can definitely search it on my blog, and you'll know what I'm talking about. It's ridiculous. It also says that Cernan worked for NASA for 13 years, and then, he's best remembered for Apollo 17, which is interesting in regards to all of this stuff that I've been following. If you've been following my channel, I've been talking about all this stuff in regards to the Miami Dolphins and how, Dan Marino wore number 13. Ryan Tannehill, the current quarterback for the Dolphins, wears number 17. Tannehill got hurt on the 13th game of the season this year. And January 15th this year was the 15th anniversary of Dan Marino's, or the 17th anniversary of Dan Marino's final game 17 years ago. He played for 17 seasons. There was a whole bunch of stuff connecting to 13 and 17, like combined together or whatever. I even talked about this 1972 Dolphins, and in that Super Bowl when they beat the Redskins, they did a tribute to Apollo 17 because it was just after Apollo 17 had happened just before that Super Bowl. The Dolphins were 17-0 that season, and they should have won the Super Bowl 17-0, but there was Garo's gaffe and whatnot that made the score 14-7 instead of 17-0. Whole bunch of other stuff along with that as well, but just pointing it out. There's lots of 17 stuff going on. I also pointed out the fact that my uncle, who just died and I've been talking about for the last couple weeks being coded into this Miami Dolphin stuff, he died exactly 44 years after Super Bowl 7 when the 72 Dolphins won the Super Bowl. He was a Miami Dolphins fan. He gave me the Marino jersey earlier this year. Kill equals 44 in Gematria. 44 shows up a whole lot around death. So, how interesting that my uncle would die on the 44th anniversary of the 72 Dolphins. Cernan even walked on the moon 34 days before that Super Bowl. Also 1 month and 3 days, a lot like 13. But he was born in the year 34. He died on a date numerology of 34. 34th prime is 139. Freemasonry equals 139. Freemasonry also equals 58 the small way, remember? Eugene Cernan equals 58 the small way. If you go from the death of Neil Armstrong to the death of Eugene Cernan, the span, if you include the end date, 1,606 days, which in numerology you don't use the zero, so it's a lot like 166. Interesting how it connects to my uncle yet again. All of these numbers seem to weirdly go back to that. My uncle's name, 166. Talked about the Flintstones, whatever. His wife's name is Betty and Barney. 166 episodes of the Flintstones were ever made. Named after the Honeymooners. Honeymooners equals 166. The jersey he gave me, I found out, was at the gold slipper that equals 166. Anyway, without the end date, Neil Armstrong died 1,605 days before Gene Cernan. How interesting, because Neil Armstrong in Gematria equals 165. Scottish Rite equals 165. Scottish Rite, you know, the Freemasons, the type of Freemasonry. They both die at the age of 82. They're the first and last guys to walk on the moon. Just interesting because I talked about the Packers in regards to the Super Bowl and how there might be a possible theme in regards to the first Super Bowl, and then this is supposedly the last Super Bowl as it's foreshadowed in the movie Oblivion. So who knows if that's really the true theme that they're going to be using, but interesting, it's the first guy and the last guy to walk on the moon. And I've showed a whole lot of other stuff with the Packers, so who knows? Just something to think about, the first and the last. I should look up Skrillex and whatnot, because he used to be in the band From First to Last. I bet you I can find some interesting connections. But anyway, Neil Armstrong, so they first landed on the moon with Neil Armstrong on July 20th, which is the 201st day of the year. If you write out Neil Armstrong's full name, Neil Alden Armstrong, I believe it is, it equals 201 in Gematria. He landed on the moon on the 201st day of the year, but he didn't actually walk on the moon until the 21st or whatever in 1969, which 21/7, there's been all kinds of 217 stuff. You know, even February 17th is the 48th day of the year. Just talked about the closest super moon since the year 48. Donald Trump equals 48. It's Michael Jordan's birthday. Just all kinds of stuff in regards to it. The NBA All-Star Week is super synced up to this as well. They moved it out of North Carolina on 21/7. And the All-Star Week begins on 2/17. Much more, but just wanted to point it out. Never pointed that out before. Didn't realize it before. You know, weird too, on CNN, on the article on CNN, they said that Apollo 17 launched on December 6th, 1972. But even on NASA.gov and Wikipedia, everywhere else I've looked, it says December 7th. And I just wonder if they did it that way because 12/6, right? And then Eugene Cernan died 1 month, 26 days before his birthday. He was in the 126th Squadron in the Navy. The Super Bowl's played at NRG Stadium this year that equals 126 in Gematria. Who knows? There's got to be a reason that CNN put it as December 6th and not December 7th, though. And Cernan also died just before his 83rd birthday. Football in Gematria equals 83. So I don't know. Just know, and if you've been following my videos, I've been a ton on the moon, and then now we get the last person to walk on the moon. He dies. You know, it just seems very strange that I've been following this moon theme, and now we get the last person to walk on the moon die. Even in regards to all the, Janet Jackson's just having a kid. She was just in the media talking about how it's connected to Michael Jackson, the moonwalker, right? He even has a son named Prince. I don't know. Prince dying on the full moon, like Prince the singer. We have all the blood moons, sort of all the symbolism of that. Lupercalia and the howling at the moon. I don't know. Lots of moon symbolism, and now we get a guy who walked on the moon die, It's just pretty strange. There's a reason for it. How it's all synced up, I really don't know. It seems like a lot of this is synced up to the Super Bowl in regards to the numbers, especially considering the Super Bowl's in Houston, and Houston is all about the Space Center. I mean, who knows? I don't know for sure if this means the Packers are going to be in the Super Bowl. But if the Packers do make the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl, then I got a bad feeling that it might actually be the last Super Bowl ever played. And that's all part of the coding, the first and the last and whatnot. But we will see. We'll see how it all plays out. There's just, you know what I mean? You got to figure out some of these themes that are going on and figure out how they're being used. The coding is just absolutely obvious. I mean, with everything, Eugene Cernan dies 58 days before his birthday. His name in Gematria equals 58. Just like how Florence Henderson died, 83 days before her 83rd birthday? This type of stuff happens constantly. It happens all the time. People, their names equal a certain thing. They die that many days before their birthday. It's super synced up. It just happens constantly. I don't know how people can deny that. I don't know how people can deny the things that happen in NFL games or NBA games. Just the other night, I was watching the Cavaliers and the Warriors. The Cavaliers scored 49 points in the first half, and the Warriors scored 78 points. Warriors equal 49, like the Cavaliers score. Cleveland equals 78. Cleveland Cavaliers equals 78. I mean, honestly, there's just so many things that are synced up by the numbers. It's just so undeniable. I know a lot of the people on here trying to discredit the things that I'm showing or other people are showing. They're just absolutely not paying attention, or they're just on here only to do that, is to discredit what you're talking about, because it is absolutely undeniable. Just because you can't predict who's going to win every single time, it doesn't mean that game or whatever in sports wasn't coded by the numbers. It always is. Every single game is coded by the numbers. I just still have not figured out the pattern to figure out who wins every time and what's more important, I've noticed a lot in the championships it's connected to themes. It's still connected by the numbers, that's for sure, but a lot of things are connected by the numbers. It's the theme that shows you the real thing, and you got to figure out what theme it is. For example, last year in the Super Bowl, it was all about the Black Panther versus the White Bronco. They did a whole bunch of Malcolm X stuff and an X theme. And what was the score of the Super Bowl? 24-10, right? 24, X, the 24th letter, 10. X is 10 in Roman numerals. You had Beyonce coming out doing the X theme, right? There was so much X symbolism, Malcolm X, right? Race war type stuff, Black Panther versus the White Bronco. It makes complete sense when you go back and look at it, if you actually knew the theme of what they were trying to do, and then you look at all the Gematria, everything leading up to it fit. But if you didn't figure out the theme, you had no idea who was going to be in there and who was going to win. But I guess what I'm saying is, the Houston being where the Super Bowl is, it seems fitting they would do a space theme, but who really knows? Maybe I'm just completely off base on, the theme. I've been lost on the theme of the Super Bowl. It seems like it's just, there's a whole bunch of themes going around. I can't figure it out, but just interesting. The first to the last makes me think of the Packers. I really don't know, though. I just want to wait and see what happens, and then I can build off of it from there, and use the knowledge of what I see afterwards for later on to see how it, plays out in future events. I guess that's the whole point of all of this. Nobody's been doing it long enough. I've been saying that forever. And it's probably connected to other events, that's for sure. It's probably connected to, who knows, some type of terrorist attack or whatever they got planned. There's some type of moon theme that's connected to that. I just notice it a lot more in sports because sports are easier to follow. Sports are all synced up to things that are going on in the media as well. So we'll leave it at that. We'll see what happens. I don't know. We'll see where this story leads me. Because it's just interesting. I talked about it back in November. I talked about this guy. He ends up dying at age 82, the same age that Neil Armstrong died. And, they're both super connected to the moon. So, I don't know. Whatever. I'm done rambling. Have a good one. Peace.